You will see when the first person will be on air, you will see sign on air in upper left corner. But you need just wait maybe 10-15 people when they will be on the row now at 0. It will be people in conference now. 10-15 people and you can start.
Okay.
Or at least you can tell them just to stay on the line until there will be more people before, because they will hear that air and some of them can hang up and you just need to keep them.
We can see, we don't have any yet. We have 43 messages.
Okay, now you're on air. Okay, messages usually show in the system faster because the system indicates answering machine and show a number immediately. Okay, now you're on air again.
Well, welcome everyone to the Gordon Ball for U.S. Senate Town Hall teleconference. We appreciate you joining in tonight. We're going to have, this is going to be a dialogue that we're hoping to have with voters this evening. We're doing this across the state of Tennessee and hope that you can, if you have any questions for Gordon Ball, please press 0 on your keypad. You will be immediately connected to our group and ask a question. One moment, here's Gordon Ball.
Oh, thank you, Matt. This is Gordon Ball, and I want to welcome you to our teleconference tonight. And for some of you who may not be familiar with my background and history, I grew up in Cocke County, Tennessee, the son of a moonshiner. I grew up in a one-bedroom trailer. I worked my way through East Tennessee State and law school in Memphis, and have been practicing law in the state of Tennessee since 1975. We have won the Democratic nomination and will be going against Lamar Alexander starting early voting starting October 15th and the actual election on November 4.
Our first question comes from John over in Knoxville, Tennessee. Gordon, he wants to know, what is your opinion on equal pay for women?
Well, unlike Lamar Alexander, John, I am in favor of equal pay for equal work for women. Mr. Alexander voted against that recently in the United States Senate. It would seem to me that this is a measure that should be a total question of fairness, and this is 2014, not 1932. So there's no doubt in my mind that women deserve equal pay for equal work. And as you know now, women only get 77 cents for every dollar that a man receives.
Let me remind callers that are joining the Gordon Ball conference call that if you would like to ask a question to Gordon Ball at any time, please press 0 on your phone keypad.
Our second question comes from Susan in Nashville, Tennessee. She wants to know, just a kind of personal question, who is your favorite UT football coach?
Well, that's interesting. Good question. Good question. I would have to say, and actually I had breakfast with him about a month ago. My favorite football coach is Johnny Majors. When I was a little boy, Johnny Majors was runner-up for the Heisman Trophy. He came back to Tennessee and coached probably 15 years. And he's just a great guy and a delight to be with. And I've known him for a long time, and his brother Joe, who's now dead, was a very close friend of mine. So there's no question that Johnny Majors is my favorite UT football coach.
All right, we have our next question coming in from Ashland City. Hadley asks, "Are you for women's rights?"
Oh, absolutely. I'm for. I would never agree for any kind of discrimination, and certainly women should be treated equally, just like their male counterparts, in all aspects, including equal pay.
Next question comes from Mona in Nashville. Mona asks, "Are you in favor of equal rights for men and women in marriage?"
Absolutely. I don't think, Mona, that the government, and I'm sure you're talking about probably same-sex marriage, I don't think the government should tell anyone who they should fall in love with. And I think that's a personal right, and the government should have no decision-making in telling me or you who we should fall in love with. You're going to have to do
this. This comes from Jane in Nashville. She asks, "What are your concerns about money being funneled into politics overseas and other places?"
Well, Jane, I think that's a very good question, and it's of great concern. Money in politics, there's always been money in politics. But with the recent Supreme Court decisions, which just allow an immeasurable amount of money to go into political races and even judicial races, and that's what we're seeing every day, that the judges' positions are literally being bought, and now most of the money raised by Lamar Alexander in this race is from out of state. So out of state money is controlling our elections, and that's something we shouldn't have. I believe if we could have the perfect world, that if you as a voter could not vote for me in a statewide race, you shouldn't be able to contribute to me. In other words, if you lived outside the state of Tennessee, you should not be able to contribute to a campaign inside the state of Tennessee. But with all that said, I don't know that we're ever going to get money out of elections.
One of the things we wanted to do on this call is also make sure that this is a dialogue. So we have a few questions that we have prepared that we're going to ask the participants of this town hall meeting, and we will be asking that question live, and we'll be going to that question. But I just want to remind everybody, if you would like to ask a question, all you have to do is hit 0, and you'll be connected to a member of Gordon Ball's staff, and they will take your question and get that to Gordon Ball, and we will get that question answered. We're about to do our first poll question. I'm going to hand the phone over, and Matt's going to tell you what it is.
First poll question is, if the election were held today, would you vote for Democrat Gordon Ball for 1, press 2 for Republican Lamar Alexander, or 3 for undecided? Now, the next question we have for Gordon comes from Rita Wells from Nashville. Does Gordon support Obama's Medicare expansion, and how would Gordon help people who can't afford to get their own insurance?
Well, I do support the Medicaid expansion in Tennessee, and unlike Governor Haslam and Lamar Alexander. And I think we're going to have to do that through the state of Tennessee. And as a United States Senator, I would openly encourage Governor Haslam to support and extend Medicaid. Recently, this summer, we were in Brownsville, Tennessee, when the hospital in Brownsville closed as a result of Governor Haslam not extending Medicaid. And there are 21 rural hospitals around Tennessee that are in danger of doing the same thing as the Brownsville Hospital did. And I was particularly struck by the ironic fact that the state of Tennessee has recently invested millions of dollars into an industrial park in Brownsville only to allow the hospital to close. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that not many companies are going to come to Brownsville, Tennessee, without a hospital. So we've got to encourage Governor Haslam, and I think everyone should get on the phone and call his office and demand that he extend Medicaid to the citizens of Tennessee who need this kind of insurance.
All right, our next question comes from Tricia in Hermitage, Tennessee. How do you feel about federal grants being taken away from the healthcare system?
Well, I don't think federal grants should be taken away from the healthcare system, and our healthcare system under the Affordable Care Act, which is working contrary to Republican belief, I don't think federal grants should be taken away from the healthcare system.
Our next question comes from Edna in Nashville. She asks what your stance are on voting rights.
Well, I believe voting rights should be extended to and made sure that everyone has an equal chance to vote. And I think, quite frankly, that being able to vote through your computer and being more accessible to being able to vote is the best way to go. And it seems to me that there's a movement around the country to restrict voting rights. And in fact, I had a question today at a speech I'd given to ministers in Memphis, and one of the question was, should a person who is incarcerated and after he or she serves her term, should they have their voting rights restored? And my answer clearly was yes. If they have served their penalty to the state or the federal government, then they clearly should have their voting rights restored.
All right, our next question is, what are your thoughts on Amendment 1?
Well, Amendment 1 is the question should be framed. It's a decision of who is going to decide a woman's health care. And I have said all along, I do not believe the government should be in our bedroom. I believe that a decision about a woman's health care is between the woman, her God, and her doctor. And I don't think the government, and particularly the Tennessee legislature, should be making that decision. In the primary campaign, we asked Lamar Alexander what he was going to do on that issue, and he's going to vote yes. Gordon Ball will vote no. And think about it this way. If the amendment said men instead of women and said cancer instead of abortion, would we even be having this discussion? And the answer to that is no, we wouldn't be having this discussion. This is a matter of choice of health care and who makes that decision. I believe it's the woman, her doctor, and her God, and Lamar Alexander believes it's the Tennessee legislature.
Just a friendly reminder that if you would like to be connected to a member of the Gordon Ball staff to ask a question, just hit 0 on your phone keypad.
Next question comes from Corey in Dixon County, Tennessee. Which would help working people most, raising the minimum wage or cutting taxes?
Corey, I think that's a good question. I think that raising the minimum wage would help working people more. 77% of our economy is built on consumer spending, and obviously, the more money a working person makes, the more he's going to have to put into our economy. Now, 117,000 people in the state of Tennessee actually depend on the minimum wage and make the minimum wage. We are the highest state in the country for number of people who make the minimum wage, and that's just not where we need to be in Tennessee. And so I think it is imperative that we raise the minimum wage, and really, if we really got down to it, we should have a living wage in this country. In fact, no person who has a job in the state of Tennessee should live in poverty.
Our next question comes from Allison in Nashville. What is your view on linking teacher incentive pay with student scores?
Well, I think we need to have standards, but let me say this. I have been traveling about the state of Tennessee from Mountain City to Memphis for the last 6 months, and I have yet to meet the first teacher who is in favor of Common Core and linking teachers' pay to test scores. I was in Brownsville earlier today and met with 3 teachers, and they all oppose linking any kind of a teacher assessment to the testing, and so I oppose Common Core. I've opposed it from the very beginning, and it's clearly an attempt, in my opinion, by certain people in this state and this country to privatize public education. And I clearly believe in public education and always will, and will always support public education. My opponent, Lamar Alexander, does not believe in public education. If some of you may remember that in the 90s he worked for a man named Chris Whittle, who tried to privatize public education in this country. And Lamar Alexander was a consultant on Chris Whittle's staff. And this is just a 2014 update.
This comes from Sandra in Memphis. Do you plan on running an ad showing Lamar speaking against the minimum wage and supporting the earned income tax credit?
Well, Sandra, that's also a good question. We're presently running our ads, but we don't have any plans concerning the minimum tax credit as we speak.
Our next question comes from William in Gilbertsville. He asked, how did Lamar make so much money as a civil servant while everyone else was working for government wages at a much lower rate?
Again, that's an excellent question. Lamar Alexander first took office as governor in 1978 and said he had $150,000, and he's been in office in one form or another for the last 40 years, and now he's worth $22 million. I would like for him to explain that. We've asked him to debate us on this issue and all issues, and he refuses.
We're going to ask another poll question. Would you like to see your senator in Washington do for you to make your life better? 1, work to create more jobs to grow the middle class. 2, work to improve primary and secondary education. 3, work to make health care affordable for all. Press 1, 2, or 3 for each of those questions. I'm going to go ahead and go to the next question for Gordon. It comes from Camilla from Nashville. She just wants to know, what is your overall platform?
Well, my overall platform would be one that increasing the minimum wage, equal pay for women, making sure veterans are our most cherished citizens and not cut their benefits, as Lamar Alexander has done, working to improve the lives of students and helping them refinance their loans is a big issue for Gordon Ball. And those four things stand out to me, and creating great paying jobs for Tennessee. And the way we do that is we've got to reform our tax code. Once we reform our tax code and getting the money into this country that's now offshore and closing corporate loopholes, then we need to take that money and start rebuilding our infrastructure and creating good jobs. Those kind of things are important issues, not just for me, but for all Tennesseans.
This question comes from Alan in Memphis. Can something better be done for the kids in Memphis?
Well, I think we were discussing that issue today, Alan, and at the ministers' conference, and I think what we have to do in Memphis is actually attract more business and build our schools at the same time. That's what we have to do, because to get the city of Memphis on the right course, those are the first two things that we've got to do, and getting good jobs, business, and making sure that our public education is second to none in the state.
You were listening to the Gordon Ball teleconference, and just a reminder that if you would like to ask a question to Gordon Ball, please press 0 on your keypad, and you'll be connected to a member of Gordon's staff who can take your comment and get it to Gordon, and we'll go with the next question.
This question comes from Susan in East Tennessee. She asked, what is your favorite legal case?
Well, clearly I've had a long career, and I would have to say my favorite legal case is the fight to clean up the Pigeon River. I've been doing that case now for 25 years, and it's a river that flows from North Carolina into my home county in Cocke County. So it's near and dear to my heart, and that would be my favorite legal case.
This question comes from Beverly in Nashville. Do you intend to go after Lamar on the issues, the minimum wage, not standing up to the extreme right in this party, scientific issues?
Beverly, we intend to go after Lamar on every issue, and we have at every turn demanded that he meet us and debate us, and he refuses. And so we will go after him in every way we possibly can without debates, and that will include radio, TV, and personal appearances.
This is a question from Fred Jones in Memphis. Would you work on recognizing the rights of Native American Indians here in West Tennessee?
I would. I mean, I don't know a lot about that issue, and I really need to be brought up to date on that issue. But certainly, any person we would be willing to work with and make sure they're treated equally, and of course that obviously includes Native Indians.
This question comes from Charlene in Memphis. How do you plan to bring jobs to Tennessee?
Charlene, as a United States Senator, in the past, most United States Senators, and certainly including Lamar Alexander, you really only see them once every 6 years. But when I'm the United States Senator, I will be going with county mayors from Johnson City to Dyersburg and helping them recruit business one-on-one. And that's something Lamar Alexander's never done and never will. But Gordon Ball, when he's the United States Senator, will do things differently.
This question comes from Alex in Chattanooga. Yes, do you have a dog, and if so, what kind?
Well, I do have a dog, and actually, the mother of my children has the dog, and I have visitation rights to the dog. He's a Cocker Spaniel, and if you've seen him, you may have seen him on Facebook. His name is Titus, and he's just a great guy. And actually, at speaking engagement in Chattanooga, my ex-wife brought him over for me to see him last week when we were in Chattanooga.
This question comes from Kathy in Memphis. Where would you suggest the funding for expanding Medicare come from?
Well, I think what we've got to do is get our costs under control. And one of the things that I would like to be able to do, Kathy, is when I go to the United States Senate, is to make sure that the insurance companies actually compete with each other. And when we make them compete with each other on price, then the price to the consumer is going to come down. And that's one of the first things I would like to do when I'm in the United States Senate.
This question comes from John in Nashville. Yes, who do you consider your biggest corporate supporter, and why do you value your support?
John, I don't know off the top of my head that I have any corporate supporters. My supporters are people. That would be Lamar Alexander, who has corporate supporters. I don't have any corporate supporters that I'm aware of.
Well, to go along with this question, we have one from Eddie in Nashville. How do you feel about corporate contributions?
Well, Eddie, I don't believe, contrary to what the United States Supreme Court believes, I don't believe corporations are people. I don't believe corporations should be allowed to make contributions to political campaigns. But with that said, that is the law in this country, and we have to live within that system when the United States Supreme Court tells us what to do. So, but again, I don't believe corporations are people.
It comes from Cora in Memphis. How do you feel about gun law reform?
Well, it's interesting. I recently got an F from the NRA rating, and I found that very interesting since I'm the son of a moonshiner who grew up in a one-bedroom trailer where we had guns in every bedroom. And I am a gun owner. I believe in the Second Amendment, so I will always support the Second Amendment, but I do believe we have to have background checks. Certainly, we have to use common sense, and it's got to be a common sense approach. We cannot have another Newtown. That can just not happen.
This question comes from Mary in Nashville. How will you be able to equally balance the needs of the state of Tennessee? I think she means between Memphis, Knoxville, Nashville.
Well, I've lived in all three parts of the state, and we all three parts of the state are wonderful parts and have differing views, differing climates. I think I'll represent all the people. I will be in touch with all the people. And that's something that Lamar Alexander, after being in office in one shape or another for 40 years, is not in touch with the people.
This question comes from Nedra in Bartlett. As a recent college grad, what is your plan to get jobs for college grads?
Again, and I go back to the answer that when I'm a United States Senator, I will personally help recruit business into this state. And as a recent college grad, we don't want you leaving Tennessee, and we want to attract new people here. And the way we attract new people here is to have jobs. And quite frankly, Tennessee is a state where we can attract businesses and attract retirees. So we have a lot going for us in this state. But I will personally help recruit industry to this state.
Another broad-reaching question from Scott in Hermitage. What is the biggest issue you would work for Tennesseans?
I think the biggest issue is bringing jobs, and I think what we need to do, and I want to be part of this discussion in reforming our tax code and rebuilding our infrastructure for the next 100 years. And when we do that, we are going to have and create almost 1 million new jobs when we do that. And that's, I think, jobs and security are the biggest two issues for Tennesseans.
This is kind of another fun one from Corey in Knoxville. If you could have a beer with one person, who would it be and why?
If I could have a beer with one person, I would love to have a beer with my father. And he's been gone now for about 4 years. And I miss him every day. And he was such a special person in my life. And I would just love to sit and talk to him. And, you know, I would love to have a beer with my father.
This comes from Deborah out of Memphis. What are your plans about illegal immigrants in our state?
Well, I think we've got to secure our borders. I don't think there's any question about that. There are approximately 17 million undocumented folks in our country. We have to have a workforce. We have to have people help us in farming, and I spoke with the Farm Bureau recently, and they have to have a workforce. I think what we have to do, is find those undocumented people, register them, make them pay taxes, and put them at the back of the line, not in front of anybody else, because you don't reward people for breaking the law, but put them at the back of the line on a citizenship path. And it's such a hard question, and there's no easy answer to this question.
This one comes from Erman in Memphis. Why is it that our governor will not expand Medicare for less fortunate people?
Well, I think I answered that earlier, and I can't explain that to you.
I don't believe that the callers heard that last question, Matt. Can you reread that?
Why is it that our governor will not expand Medicare for less fortunate people?
I think I answered that question earlier, and maybe there's some new viewers on. But I can't answer that question. I don't know. It just makes no sense to me that Governor Haslam would give up we've lost almost $2 billion. We've lost hospitals, rural hospitals. 21 more are in danger of closing. And yet Governor Haslam gives us no reason why he's not expanding Medicaid. He just keeps telling us that he's working with the federal government on his own plan. And it's been almost a year and a half. I have no clue why he's not doing it.
This question comes from Cora in Memphis. How do you feel about requiring voters to show IDs, especially senior citizens who don't have an ID?
Well, I assume that means to show IDs to vote, and I really think that everyone should be able to vote, and we almost ought to be able to vote from our computers. But even if you voted from a computer, you would have to have your own number and be able to log in. Voting with IDs is we all have to show our identification. So I don't think having an ID is a particularly bad idea.
We're going to go with another poll question. In your opinion, is Tennessee headed in the wrong direction, the right direction, or undecided? +1 for the right direction, 2 for wrong direction, and 3 for undecided. The next question comes from Maurice in Memphis. Lamar supports his portion of the state. Would you support increasing jobs in Memphis?
Well, absolutely. I think, again, I was talking with some ministers today, and they were all talking about the fact that they never see Lamar until election time. So Memphis is a great city. It is really the city. It is the city where I went to school, and I will always support Memphis. In fact, my son will be going to law school here in August in 2015, and I intend to have a residence in Memphis, Tennessee.
This comes from Lily in Memphis. With so many young adults in Memphis with criminal records, how do they get better jobs to get off the streets?
Again, Lily, that goes back to what we've talked about before, and that the leadership in Memphis, and hopefully when I'm a United States Senator, I'll be able to help them. We've got to get good jobs into Memphis, and instead of the Kellogg's of the world leaving Memphis, or Kellogg's didn't leave, but other companies leaving Memphis, we need to get good paying jobs into the city.
This comes from Tracy out of Hermitage. How do you feel about public education?
Well, Tracy, I'm a product of public education. If it weren't for public education, I wouldn't be talking with you tonight. I went to East Tennessee State, delivered pizzas at night. I went to Memphis Law School and loaded trucks on Florida Street in Memphis. I believe the only way out of the cycle of poverty for people like me and others is through public education, because obviously we couldn't afford to go to private schools.
This question comes from Tracy in Memphis. What can you do about all the abandoned properties here?
Well, Tracy, I don't, other than what we've already talked about getting good jobs and getting people to work in Memphis, I don't know the answer to the abandoned property question, but obviously Mayor Wharton in Memphis and others and your county commissioners are working towards that.
As a reminder, you were listening to the Gordon Ball for U.S. Senate conference call. If you would like to ask a question, please press 0 on your keypad, and you will be connected to an operator who will get your question to Gordon. The next question, Matt is about to ask.
This comes from Jackie out of Memphis. What is your definition for the word bipartisan?
Well, my definition for the word bipartisan, and I don't have a dictionary in front of me, Jackie, but my definition for the word bipartisan would be someone, and talking about a person, someone who would have the ability to look past party lines and understand that the issues facing our country are not Democrat or Republican or independent, that we're all in this together and we need to work together. And that would be my issue, my definition off the top of my head of bipartisanship.
This comes from Jamie out of Chattanooga. She wants to know, how did you make your money?
Well, Jamie, I started out practicing law in Newport, Tennessee, and on my own, and my first office cost $37.50 a month. That was the rent. And for the next 35 years or 40 years or however long it's been, I've represented people all over the country, and that's how I've made. That's what I've made my career in, and that's how I've made the money that I've made.
This question also comes from Jackie out of Memphis. He is concerned about the Walking Horses Pass Act. All scoring devices need to be banned.
Jackie, I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, we're preparing a op-ed piece to be released shortly about the soaring of horses, and as you probably already know, at least from your question you probably do, that Lamar Alexander is in favor of still using the implementation of soaring and causing injury to horses. And, of course, one of his biggest supporters is head of the Shelbyville Horse Association. So I'm in favor of the legislation that will prevent soaring of all Tennessee walking horses.
This question comes from Ruth out of Nashville. Lamar was for reducing pensions of military. Is Gordon going to also cut pensions for vets?
Absolutely not, Ruth. In my world, I don't reduce benefits of veterans. I think veterans should be our most cherished people, and when I'm a United States Senator, I will have an open door policy for veterans, and who will be able to come and I'll be able to go to them, or they'll be able to come to me and talk personally about their problems, and I will not be cutting their pensions or their benefits.
This comes from William out of Memphis. What is your view on privatizing prisons, and how can we as citizens assist you as a United States Senator to help our youth?
Well, William, as you know, probably Lamar Alexander in the 80s was one of the big proponents of privatizing prisons. I'm not a proponent of privatizing prisons, and I'm not a proponent of privatizing any public agency or government function. I think those need to stay with the government and be run by government officials and government employees. I don't think we need to give that up and allow private industry into those kind of functions. And what was the second part of the question?
How can we help the youth?
Well, I think that we've got to get good paying jobs in and good education for our children. And as I go across the state, those are the two paramount issues that I see parents worried about. And are they going to be able to educate their children, and are their children going to have a better future than they've had? And I hope, as the next United States Senator, I can assist in that.
This question comes from Charles out of Greenville, Tennessee. He asks, how do you feel about the current ISIS issue?
Well, Charles, I feel that George W. Bush gave us the quagmire in Iraq, and we're digging our way out. And I don't believe there is a good answer for ISIS other than airstrikes. I would never vote to put boots back on the ground in the Middle East unless it was proven to me that ISIS or any other entity in the Middle East was an imminent threat to the United States. And the operative word there is imminent. I think ISIS is a threat, certainly, but I don't believe it's an imminent threat that would require our troops going back into Iraq.
The next question comes from Mary out of Memphis. How can we improve mass transit throughout Tennessee from a federal level? Does Gordon believe in mass transportation for the state?
I do believe in mass transportation, and it would. That's such a good question, because I think it would be a wonderful thing to connect certain parts of our state, for example, Chattanooga to Atlanta, or Knoxville to Chattanooga, or Nashville to Memphis with mass transit. And we have the right of ways if we started doing it. We need to get into the 21st century.
As a reminder, this is the Gordon Ball for U.S. Senate conference call. We want to try to get to everyone's questions. If you would like to ask a question of Gordon, we have about 12 minutes left, so we will try to get to everybody. If you can press 0 to be connected to an operator, they will get your question to Gordon. The next question, Matt will read.
This comes from Sarah out of Memphis. Memphis is the highest poverty. What would Gordon do to address all the aspects of poverty that is faced in Memphis, i.e. housing, crime, transportation?
Sarah, I think it all, again, begins and ends with public education, and we've got to do a better job on public education in Memphis. We've got to be able to recruit industry to Memphis that will support our public schools. And those are the two things, and it's really sort of the chicken or the egg theory, and, which one comes first. And we've got to work on both aspects. So it's not an easy question. It's not an easy thing to do, but we've got a great mayor and some great county commissioners here, so we need to get started with that job.
This question comes from David out of Memphis. What can be done to companies who cut their employees' benefits due to the Affordable Care Act?
David, I don't know that there's any way in the Affordable Care Act, and of course, as you know, the Affordable Care Act is 2,200 pages long. I don't know that there's any aspect of the Affordable Care Act that penalizes a company for cutting benefits one way or the other. It's an excellent question, and it's one that I need to find the answer to, and I just don't know the answer to it.
This comes from Matthew out of Memphis. What is your stance on privatizing Social Security?
Well, I would never privatize Social Security ever, and allow privatizing investment of Social Security funds in the stock market. That would just be something I would never, ever do. I believe that Social Security is there for a reason, and it's there to protect our citizens, and they've paid for it and worked for it, and they should get all the benefits of it.
This comes from Teresa in Nashville. What is your view on energy and environmental policies?
Well, I think clearly, Teresa, that we need to, in the next 20 years, we need to broaden our energy policy to include every kind of energy, wind, nuclear, that we can do to lessen our dependence on foreign oil in the Middle East. We've got to get away from that. I believe in the Keystone Pipeline. I would vote for the Keystone Pipeline because it gives us jobs in the short term and long term, and it allows us another outlet for energy.
Going along with that question from Elizabeth in Memphis, do you support wind and solar energy?
I do, Elizabeth. I support, again, as I said, I support all kinds of energy propositions, and I think we have to put wind, solar, nuclear, all of that together to get ready for the 21st century.
James from Memphis asked, Why have you given money to public universities across the state?
I've given money to a lot of public universities, East Tennessee State, the University of Tennessee, the Memphis Law School, because I believe in public education. And again, Jane, if it weren't for public education, you and I wouldn't be having this discussion tonight. So I'm a total supporter of public education, and I will never vote for any issue, for any proposed law that would harm public education.
This question comes from Samuel out of Memphis. How do you feel about trade agreements that allow foreign corporations to sue in U.S. courts?
I think that that's an interesting question, Samuel, and I believe that our court system is the best in the world, and if there is an injury in the United States, I believe that foreign companies should be allowed to bring a case where the injury has occurred. Now, with that said, every case rests on its different facts, so that's what we would really have to look at. But I don't believe in closing our court system. If there's an injury in the United States, then I think we need to take a long look at allowing people to do that.
This is from Ida in Memphis. To what extent do you believe that Congress is opposed to Obama because of his race?
Well, I don't know about that. I won't be able to speak out of to what one congressman does or what one senator does in his own personal views. I would hope that no congressman or senator would ever be opposed to our president because of his race.
This next question comes from Jim out of East Tennessee. I'm from a small town. What are your thoughts on public transportation in rural areas?
Well, Jim, I mean, the cost of public transportation in rural areas may be prohibitive, and I realize we've got to be able to build roads and do that and make sure that our rural citizens are taken care of. But as far as mass transit into rural areas, we would have to take a long look at whether or not that would be cost effective.
This question comes from Reginald out of Charlotte, Tennessee. What is the main difference between yourself and Lamar?
Reginald, I think that at the end of the day, the main difference between myself and Lamar Alexander is I will never stop caring about people, and I think Lamar Alexander, at least in the last 12 years, has stopped doing that and being in touch with the citizens of this state. And that will never happen as long as Gordon Ball is your United States Senator.
All right, this question comes from Mary in Memphis, Tennessee. Are you concerned about the drug problems that we are faced with?
Absolutely. I mean, meth is a huge problem in this state, and especially my part of the state, Eastern Tennessee. And we need to be more vigilant. We need to crack down on drug users and drug sellers, and so it's a huge problem we have.
This question comes from Susan out of Knoxville. How would you help Tennessee college students refinance their student loans?
Well, Susan, that's one thing that we touched on earlier, and that's a really great question. And as you know, a lot of college students are now paying 8 and 9% on their college loans, and the loans are upwards of $60,000 to $100,000, and there was a recent proposal to allow the federal government to refinance those loans at a much lower rate of interest. And Lamar Alexander voted against even having a debate on that issue. So I think it's something we have to do in this country. If we can bail out Wall Street, we should be able to bail out our children.
We are going to have time. Our time is almost up. We have time for one final question, but if we have not been able to get to your question, please understand that you can go to GordonBallSenate.com and find a way to reach Gordon, as well as you can also, if you agree with Gordon Ball and some of the things he said tonight and wish to participate and help in his campaign, you can certainly sign up there as well as contribute. We have time for one last question, and I will turn it over to Matt to ask that final question.
This question comes from Matt in Knoxville. What is your favorite book?
Well, Matt, I just finished reading a book that I really, really enjoyed, and that was about Teddy Roosevelt and William Howard Taft and their relationship. And it was really great reading, and it reminded me and told me about how progressive William Howard Taft and Teddy Roosevelt were in the early part of the century. I enjoyed it very, very much.
This will conclude the call for Gordon Ball for Senate, and we do appreciate your time. Your opinions matter to Gordon Ball. We definitely want to wish you, and Gordon will say good night. And if you have any questions or we need to reach us, please reach us at GordonBallSenate.com.
I want to thank you all for being with us tonight, and I realized that maybe I didn't answer your questions because I didn't know the answer or didn't give you the best answer. But as your United States Senator, I want you to understand that I will do everything in my power to represent you from Mountain City to Memphis, and I need your help and support. Lamar Alexander's been in office for 40 years, and we need to retire Lamar Alexander. Thank you and good night.